So I went into due diligence, and then I quickly found out why it's a time suck for them, because they're operating it like it's 1985. They have all these analog green folders for every job they do, no cloud-based anything. They accounted for over 50 million in account receivables on one long spreadsheet. I'm like, guys, my company in New Jersey, we do restoration and everything. That company in Pennsylvania, they normally sub out about 2.5 million to subs for whatever. Now that we own it, no more third-party subs. They're going to sub Restore Pro into it. So now Restore Pro is going to have a boost of 2.5 million in top line revenues, because we're going to be using ourselves to sub out. And that's economies of scale. That's where we start playing with each other, and things get really powerful that way. Renan Cortez. I live in central New Jersey. Originally from New York City. Left when I was 20, joined the Army. So I did that for 12 years. I was a combat medic. And then I did corporate America for another 16 years. I did pacemaker sales. I was a cardiology specialist. And so I got to see Fortune 100 companies at their best. So I have like 23 years of cardiology and medical, and I decided to go and buy a construction company because that made all the sense in the world, right? And I did that November 22. So I'm fairly new into this whole thing, but I have a big vision, and it's been one hell of a roller coaster year this last year. My first acquisition, when I first started, I was looking at frozen yogurt. I was looking at small places. I got an SBA loan for a $700,000 dry cleaner. Top line revenue, 600,000. And then after debt service, net was 230,000. I'm like, okay, I put about 4 of these together. That's over $1 million, then, just start scaling up from there, because strategy is a strong point of mine. But in the process, I hired a VA to do off-market deal sourcing, which, Jay, I think you and Andrew are part of.
Yeah. I randomly ended up talking about them, yes.
So Dave, I told him my buy box. It was 500,000 EBITDA, service-based business, all in the New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, area. And he finds one with 2 million EBITDA. And I'm like, what are you doing? I don't have that money. I have dry cleaner money. But this one was a restoration business, so like a construction restoration business. I went in to see what it would look like. It's free to due diligence. Fell in love with it. And I had to solve now for the fact that I didn't have capital to buy it, through SBA or conventional or whatever. So this particular deal is a unicorn deal for me, because I got this $8 million business, 100% seller finance, no down payment, no bank loan, basically paying them out of their revenues. It's been over a year. Things are going great. We're growing. But that's what sparked the idea of, if I could do this without any capital up front, imagine if I had the capital, right? Because I was doing well at corporate.
But let's go back. Let's drill down into that deal. So it is a VA found the deal, and essentially he's calling anybody in any service business. The person picked up, says, yes, I'm interested in selling. The next move, you went and you talked to the seller, or you met with him in person?
I talked to him on the phone.
On the phone. Okay. And you're said in Jersey, and he's where?
New Jersey as well.
So Bolton, Jersey. Okay. And so what was the reason, what triggered him to say, yes, I'm thinking about selling?
So it was kind of, so he's not, he's fairly young. He's late 40s. His brother is in his early 50s, and they have several things that they're doing. And this particular business was just a time suck for them. Like, they were putting in massive amounts of hours. I'm like, all right, I just want to see what's going in. So I went into due diligence, and then I quickly found out why it's a time suck for them, because they're operating it like it's 1985. They have all these analog green folders for every job they do, no cloud-based anything. They literally have one Excel spreadsheet with like 9,500 rows of they accounted for over 50 million in account receivables on one long spreadsheet. I'm like, guys, you could at least do a different year per sheet. They don't know how to do that.
These are young guys. So have they inherited these businesses, or what?
This is a 15-year business that him and his brother started. Before this, they had liquor stores. So, they both have college degrees. One is in finance, the other one's in marketing. They always wanted to be entrepreneurs. So they have different things, real estate, they had liquor stores, but then they got into restoration because the margins in restoration are tremendous. So they started just two brothers in a truck and they grew it all the way up to a 6 point something million dollar business, top line revenues. And when we cold called them, they were like, hey, we could buy our time back by getting a good, by selling this off. So we figured out a win-win situation there.
So they're doing 30% EBITDA margin?
Yeah, it's about 25-30% EBITDA. Yeah, it's like 80% GP percentage, gross profits. This is a super strong. Yeah, anybody that's done restoration will tell you that the margins in these things are strong. And then me coming from corporate, I saw all the opportunities to enhance the efficiencies and all, everything else. So this is a win for us.
So they have their own crews. How many trucks do they have? What's the structure?
30 came with 35 employees, 7 trucks. They have a full restoration division as well, all under the same roof. It's so you have your Servpro franchises, and they're smaller or whatever, and they're the big dogs in the house. But we cover all of New Jersey and Eastern Pennsylvania, and it's a robust company. And since then, right now I'm doing a national roll up of restoration and capital improvement companies, and I've looked at several of these companies. And I will say this is one of the more buttoned up ones because a lot of the ones I see out there, the mom and pop Chuck with a truck kind of companies, they're usually about 10 to 15 employees, 3 to 5 trucks. They're not run as well. There are bigger ones, and I'm getting one in California. It's an $18 million business out there. It comes with like 60 employees, and it's going to be nice. But yeah, I'm doing a whole portfolio on restoration, capital improvement type businesses.
So when you called on that first one and you went to and talked to them on the phone, and I'm assuming you went meet with them, did you make the offer, or they gave you the price? Because this was not listed.
That's right.
Okay, so how did you guys get to the price?
So in the beginning, we didn't really talk price. It was more of me educating them on what it would be valued at. I showed them comps, traditionally for your EBITDA margin for the sector that you're in, you're looking at a 3x, right? And I was setting this whole thing up because what I ended up doing was paying them a 4x multiple on a 2 million EBITDA. And that's so that I could get the seller financing piece. I said, look, I'm going to give you a whole multiple above. Normally this is supposed to go for 7 million, 6.5 million. I'm going to pay you 8 million if you do seller financing. So I had to educate them on what their normal comps are. I went up on the APR because we did 7% at 12 years. At the time I made this structure, the going rate was 6.5% for SBA. So I showed them as well, I'm giving you a higher APR. I'm giving you a higher valuation on the multiple, and on top of that, you're getting the interest payments instead of JP Morgan or Bank of America or Live Oak. And so all those ingredients put in. So in the beginning, no, we didn't talk about price. When they tried to, I would say, look, I have to know if I even want this first. I need to do diligence. So that's how we started building our relationship, our trust, getting coffee, having lunch, talking about the books. And it took about 2 months before we really started getting into, okay, I want this. How much is this going to be? How are we going to structure this? That's how that was.
So you did all your due diligence before making them an offer?
Yes.
And so did you hire somebody for due diligence, or you did it yourself?
I did it myself. The only thing I hired external was a third-party CPA firm to do a quality of earnings report. That cost about $6,200. Because I did my analysis, I did everything. Because leading up to this, I used my GI Bill to get my MBA. So I went to the Robert H. Smith School of Business, University of Maryland, got my MBA there. And then I went on to Columbia Business School for private equity and venture capital. And then I'm part of Cody Sanchez mastermind for buying businesses. So there's a lot of information out there that I have at my disposal for due diligence, all these checklists and everything. And a lot of it, believe it or not, was more instinct, more gut feeling, looking them in their eyes and seeing, hey, so how much money are you bringing in year over year? Just asking him in different ways, can you show me the bank accounts? What have you done with the excess money? Because, we pulled it out and put it in real estate. Oh, can I see the real estate? So it's a lot of those kinds of questions. And after everything was said and done, I was proud of myself. I'm not going to lie. And quality of earnings came back right on the dime. 2 million in EBITDA. that was right there where I had it. So
And they've been doing 2 million for the last 3, 4 years.
yeah, yeah, it was adjusted EBITDA over the last 3 years. Yeah, it was actually more. Um, 2 years during COVID because it's restoration. They did a lot of disinfecting for COVID, so they had a book of business that was like 2 million more than that. I did not want to, predicate the valuation on that, so it was an adjusted EBITDA, and we actually grew the EBITDA up to like 2.3 million after a year. So
Okay. So you acquired, so you had you did your due diligence, you made them an offer, then, did you have to put anything down?
nothing, zero that, and that's what broke their brain a little bit because they're like, "Can you put 500 down?" I'm like, "Man, I don't have that. I really don't have that. I have $70,000 that I could put down to buy a dry cleaner. That's what I have." And I said I could put I have a Audi Q8 or whatever. Like, I could put my Audi down. I mean, whatever that's going to do for you. I told him, I said I don't feel comfortable putting my house on the line for anything. So at that point, we had already built a relationship for 2.5 months where they knew that I had success in corporate. They knew I had the leadership from the military. They've seen my path. They felt good about who I was as a person. And so I put it back on them. I said, here's two questions for you. Is the revenue in this business strong enough to pay the debt service? And they're like, oh yeah, of course. This is a strong business. Yeah, you're right. Two, do you think I'll run it to the ground, or do you think I could run it? They're like, this is easy. You could definitely run it. Then let's go for this ride, guys. And they're like, all right, it was just it was a matter of fact kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, it's kind of risky. I'm like, well, technically I'm paying you 3.8 million above your 8 million for that risk. They're like, why do you say that? I put an amortization table together. $8 million at 7% at 12 years is another 3.8. So I'm really paying them 11.8 million for this business just because they're getting the interest payments. And once they swallowed that and they saw the upside for them, they actually came back 6 months ago and they're like, hey, look, if you ever want to refinance, can you come to us first? Because they don't want to be refinanced out of this thing, you know?
So how much is the debt service?
The debt service is about 80,000 a month.
Okay. Not bad.
Yeah.
And so now, so during that due diligence, do you get to talk to the employees, any supervisors, any clients?
No, and it's kind of going through that process. A lot of people, like I said, I'm in the unconventional acquisitions mastermind, and that's a big thing for people. They feel they need to have access to the employees beforehand, or ultimately you're going to run the business the way you're going to run it, right? So I did get a good scouting report from the previous owners, and I'm going to use these real names. I said, hey, look, who is next in line to be able to run this company up and down, left and right? They said, Barry, beyond a shadow of a doubt, Barry. Cool. Who's the most, least receptive, who's your bottom of the barrel kind of guys? Kevin and Joe, they're okay, but they're more administrative. Well, 6 months into it, I had to get rid of Barry because he wouldn't go with the new flow. And I made Kevin and Joe the VP of their respective divisions because the way that I'm running the business is very different than their mentality. So you have to see it with your own eyes. And it's going to take you 6 months. Even going in and kind of meeting people over lunch, you're going to get the very superficial stuff. And it actually puts you at risk for creating disharmony. So it doesn't matter to me. I have faith in myself and my team that once we take the company over, the leadership will come through. We put in EOS. We have very transparent meetings, and then we tell them vision, mission, and make sure we're all rowing in the same direction.
Okay. So how many technicians, how many staff in the office?
So it's about 10 people in the office, and everybody else is like senior, like project managers or lead techs or regular techs. Yeah.
Got it. And so tell me a little bit about the transition. Now you announced, or you guys came together, you announced the acquisition. Then what was your plan?
I'll tell you what, man, the transition was the weirdest, and it's never going to happen like this again. Because day one, January 1, I'm in the office, and we were like in a house. That was headquarters, a house that was fashioned into the office building. And so I'm sitting with my reconstruction manager, and I'm like, hey, I'm Renan. He's like, oh yeah, we heard that you guys are going to be here. And I said, hey, look, I need your social. We're putting together our benefits. Like, I'm not giving you my social. I was like, well, I kind of need it. And so long story short, they were told, the entire company was told that myself and my business partner, Nick, were administrative helpers. They didn't tell the people that the company had been sold. I was like, wait a minute. It was my first acquisition. I should have been better than that. We're way past that now. I mean, now these guys will run through walls for us, but it was very weird. That first month or two was very weird. It was like, oh, so we had to tell everybody that the company was sold, and there was a lot of resentment to the old. It was just, I don't know why they did it that way. But since then, we took on another company in Pennsylvania, and we made sure that they knew that they were being acquired. We already went to their holiday party. We already met all the people. Everything is good. We already had our integration meetings. So lessons learned, right? Just assumed that they were going to tell them, but they didn't. You know,
Did he tell you why? Because you're still paying them. You're still in a relationship with them.
I have no idea. I think it was an ego thing for them. You know,
Interesting.
yeah. It's like, what, were we going to keep it a secret forever? I don't understand that. But
So did you get any training or any like support from the sellers?
they were out after a month. It really is not a hard business to run. It is not. Yeah.
So tell me about the business. Like right now, are you? Yeah, tell me a little bit about the business.
So already in the year, we changed business models. So the traditional business model for what we do is if you get a flood, storm, fire, smoke, mold, asbestos, kind of like Serpro, we go in, we dry it up and demo everything. We also have the capability to rebuild everything because we have our own in-house reconstruction division, which is what I love about it. You don't have to outsource it. So that's the general thing. And we were 80% residential, you know, having to get the phone calls 24 hours. You know, I have water in my crawl space. All right. Since then, the other companies that I found, I love their model infinitely better. They do capital improvements. So what they do is they get locked into these 3 to 5 year contracts over, you know, just like $10-15 million contracts. You go in and you're doing repiping, you're doing repairing all the drywall, stucco remediation, all the stuff to kind of refresh a property, like multifamily property. We go in and we do that while we're on site. If any one of those properties should get water damage, fire damage, a sprinkler goes off, we're already on site. So there's no need to call Serpro or Belfour or anything. We're on site. So the California business, oh my gosh, they beat the top people in the space for, like, we just took out a $44 million contract out there. And I fell in love with that business model. So now we're 80% commercial, 20% residential. And we're just locking down these big multi-year contracts. We're expanding down to South Carolina, Arizona. It's just a whole national presence right now. Matter of fact, my director of strategy, he's a go-bro. I met him in Tahoe last year. He's in the space. And I reached out to him because everybody told me I need to talk to this guy. I need to talk to him. So I reach out to him and he goes, "Why are you in, the little mom and pop restoration talking to me?" Because he's pretty high up in a privately held restoration business. He brings in over 20 million by himself in revenue. And his name is Jose Linares. I don't know if you guys know him. Yeah.
I didn't talk.
And so it's still very, so I'm using this as a friend DA right now, like GoBundance, everything kind of, because he didn't officially resign his post yet. Like he's doing that this month to come over. But
that's awesome.
So he sees the vision and he's the one that really is driving this whole, because he's seen it. He helped, he works for Blue Sky, which is one of the top ones out there. Took him from like 15 offices all the way up to 63 offices across the nation. And I was like, hey, can you help us do that? And so we struck a deal.
That's awesome. So this reminded me, I didn't, when you did your due diligence, what was the required working capital that you needed to run this business?
So it's about 300,000 to 500,000.
Okay.
I would say that's like a month and a half, 2 months. But the good thing was this thing came with 1.8 million in receivables. So I negotiated that as part of it. So that definitely covered the working capital aspect. I didn't need
the same price, or you paid more for that?
Yeah, within the same price.
Okay. How much you said?
1.8.
Wow.
So it was actually 2.2, but there was like maybe 400,000 that might be bad receivables. So they will take that on and we'll just keep on. I mean, the previous owners, they'll work on that, but the other 1.8, they'll just go ahead and transfer it over to us. So we kept a running log. It took about 7 months to get the 1.8 in, but that was perfect for what we needed. Because since then, I moved us out of the house. We have a real professional building with a warehouse. I got a whole new fleet of vehicles. We rebranded. It was a whole thing. We did a lot of good things for the company so far.
That's awesome. And so, having reinvested back in the business, having grown that business, but it's only been a year, right?
Yes.
Got it. So, what's the revenue this year? How did you end? How did you end 23?
So we went up to 2.3 million in EBITDA. So a little by like 6.5, and we're running more efficiently. So we're getting more profit for the buck. Our cash flow cycles have decreased because it would take them 6 months to recoup some of their money. We put a cloud-based system, so we're not dealing with the green folders just placed all over the place. You could work on a chart no matter where you are in the world. We just put in efficiencies, and yeah, it's been really good.
Did you grow the crew, or the crew stayed the same?
We actually lost 2 people.
Okay.
Yeah, so we lost actually 3 people. One person from the office, Barry, the one that because he was just dead. He was just there because he was their neighbor from 15 years ago, and he was just hanging out. So we let go of him, and we gave him every chance in the world. And the thing was, he did not want to adopt the new way that we were doing things. Like he was stuck in the old ways, cloud based. He didn't want to hear about that. Well, you kind of have to. That's where we're going. And then 2 techs. So because they were used to getting paid for doing nothing, kind of like, just to be there. And I was like, we're not doing that. We're going to run an equitable shop. And so they went off to go work for like Amazon or something, Amazon warehouse. One of them already trying to come back. I'm like, we'll see.
Got it. So this acquisition happened, he said, end of 22?
We signed end of 22 and took it over January 1, 23.
23, okay. And then when did you start looking for the next one?
Oh, summer of last year. That's when the other 2 came on board. So we have California and Pennsylvania. We are done with Pennsylvania. That was a $10 million acquisition, and we're probably within the month of closing on California.
And so tell me about Pennsylvania. How did you guys find it? And then what was the deal like?
So now we're in the, now that we're in the network, deal flow starts coming to us. I've been fortunate to be on some podcasts, like Brian Lubin put me on his, and John Edwin. And so people hear about it word of mouth, and it's like, hey, you're the guy that does this. And so this was actually perfect because when I rolled up to the meeting that morning at the diner, this guy waves to me. Like, I don't know who that is. I go into the diner and it's him. I'm like, how'd you know what I look like? He goes, I did my diligence on you and I listened to the podcast that you were on. I'm like, so what do you think? He goes, I love that you do seller financing because I hate banks. I was like, yes, there we go. So he still wants a bit of a nut of a down payment. In Orange County, it's a little bit south. Yeah. And so he still wants a bit of a nut because he wants to buy his father a house and stuff like that. But what we're doing is we're doing a deferred down payment. So the way the whole philosophy behind it, I'm like, hey, look, man, we're already putting Restore Pro, which is the first company, New Jersey company. That's already, I'm going to back up a little bit. I actually started a fund. I raised $100 million to do additional acquisitions. So the fund, I put Restore Pro into the fund, and then I'm raising more money. And so I told him, I said, look, it would look really good to investors if I had 2 assets in the portfolio, front loaded, not, I hope I could, secure it. It's secured in the portfolio because that'll give us a little bit more credibility to raise capital. And he went along with it. Perfect. He's like, yeah, sure. So it's seller finance, 7% at 15 years, because we're never going to see 15 years because we're going to exit before that. And he understands that. So he was fine with going with 15 years. And then once we get funded, which should be within 2 or 3 weeks, I give him $5 million. It's a $10 million business. So I give him $5 million. He has $2 million in equity, and the rest is seller financed.
Okay. Is he staying on board?
Yeah. Yeah. He's only 36 years old. He knows what this thing can be. The reason he wants to come with us is because he wants to go national with us. So from Pennsylvania, we took down 12 million, 4 million, and then we're working on a $20 million contract in Myrtle Beach. That's going to keep us there for 5 years. So now we plant a flag in Myrtle Beach. Now we have an office down there generating revenue, And that's how we're going to expand across the nation.
So these are contract with the first company or with his company?
With the one that we just acquired in Pennsylvania, it's their contracts, but
And,
because they're one umbrella, yeah.
and they're pure restoration contract, or they're like the
Capital
commercial
improvement,
rehab capital? Okay.
capital improvements. And now the best part about that, my company in New Jersey, we do restoration and everything. That company in Pennsylvania, they normally sub out about 2.5 million to subs, for whatever. Now that we own it, no more, third party subs. They're going to sub Restore Pro into it. So now Restore Pro is going to have a boost of 2.5 million in top line revenues because we're going to be using ourselves to sub out. And that's economies of scale. That's where we start playing with each other and things get really powerful that way.
Okay. Derek, did you have a question? Okay. So whenever I hear these numbers, these big contracts on the commercial construction, I think working capital. And so
Yes.
tell me about that. How do you think through that?
So the one in California, they have doubled every year for the last 3 to 4 years. And it's been tight, too tight for them. They've been, beg, borrowing and stealing and everything. And that's why we're the cavalry. We're coming in because we're coming in with private equity money to help with the expansion and the growth because I'm building working capital into the equity that I'm pulling in from investors. That's where we're getting it from. It can't be organic. Organically, it would take us 10 to 15 years to even think about growing this rate. But with private equity money, we're getting it down to about 5 years where we get to 100 million in EBITDA. That's our goal.
Got it. So now the first deal was 100% seller financing. The second deal is kind of 50% with 25% seller financing, 25% holding equity. Now the third deal, what is the structure there?
So it's the same. It's 50% down payment from private equity, and the rest is seller financed.
Okay.
Yeah. So 9 million goes to the 51% owner that he's leaving. He's going out and retiring. And the 49% owner is staying on for the next 5 years. He's seller financing. And basically, he's putting some of his money back into the fund as well. And as an investor, as an LP, and he's going to have a second bite of the apple when we do the big exit.
How much is the acquisition?
18 million.
18 million. Okay. And these guys are technically want to stay in for a second exit.
Yes.
That's the idea.
Yes.
So did you present all that? Did you present that whole, how it's going to play out, or it was just kind of talk through?
Oh, no, it was a lot of education, a lot of, showing the vision, showing what we're going to do, because I don't go in with the rigid way of structuring these things because I don't know what they want. I have to understand what is driving them, what would drive. And so once I then tell them about the vision, if they want a piece of it, then we figure out a way to do that. I mean, we actually secured the deal. I flew from New Jersey to California, got on a boat the next morning at 5 a.m. and we went deep sea fishing for like 10 hours while we structured the deal because that's what they love to do. They love to fish. I get seasick. And so I popped a bunch of Dramamine. I'm like, oh, God, yeah. But I hung out for the entire day, and it was good relationship building, and we got to know each other. And, and it was a trust factor also. So now we're at the final stages of this thing.
And, aside from getting that person to exit, obviously one person wanted to retire. Is that retirement? Is that what it is?
Yeah, he's retired. Yeah.
And then the other person is still young enough to keep going.
He just turned 50. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So he's young. And so aside from that, what else was driving them needing to sell, and then why they were not listed already?
So they were listed. They had a deal for 24 million from another private equity, but then once the interest rates started going up, the debt service, it just didn't make sense anymore. So the deal fell apart. When I came to the table, they were telling me about 24 million. I was like, why? Your EBITDA is not there. It's because the previous private equity firm valued the future contracts because these guys have about 180 million in contracts over the next couple of years. So they put it into the valuation. I'm like, but that's not realized revenue. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not that mature private equity firm that I could just drop money like that to do that. It has to make sense. And so that's when we structured it so that he could have a second bite of the apple, which is why we got to the $18 million price point and everything's there. Organically, like I said, it got very tight for them. So they were looking for some sort of exit, one, to make some money, and two, to get some of that influx of capital so that they can grow and expand like they know they can. And that's where we are right now.
And what was their revenue last year?
It about 2.5. So I based the whole thing on a 6x of a 3 million EBITDA, which, when I got the financials, did the quality of earnings, they were right about 2.5, 2.6, right? So I'm like,
2.5 EBITDA. With EBITDA on what revenue? What gross?
12 million. Like 12 million top line, yeah.
12 million top line, 2.5 EBITDA, and then you gave them 3 million EBITDA, and you gave them 6x. Why jump that high?
Because that was my way of factoring in future value of these contracts.
Okay.
And so I said, look, instead of saying 24 million because of the future contracts, let's do 6x on 3 million, right? Let's just call it 3 million. So that's 18. And what we have it structured on the purchase agreement that anything above 3 million EBITDA for the next 2 years, they get 25% of that. So that helps them with the upside, because in their minds, they just worked the last year and a half getting these big contracts. I mean, they were whining and dining, going to all the trade shows and, making the relationships. And so, yes, I do think it's fair that they realize some of that upside, right?
So these contracts, are they like over how long?
Like 5 years. Yeah, they're like 3 to 5 years.
So 20 million a year?
Something like that, yeah. Yeah, we're going to hit like 26 million this year in 2024. So, about that.
Okay.
Yeah, because some of these are 3-year contracts. Some of these are 5-year contracts. Some of the, so you do the aggregate. We have a whole pro forma set aside so that, we have it forecasted that company is going to do 26 million in revenue, which distills down to a little over 5 million in EBITDA for this year, So, but the thing is, it hasn't happened yet. So I'm protecting the downside by doing it at a $3 million price, EBITDA point. However, if we should go above that 3 million, they get 25% of anything above the 5 million point. And that's how we made it so that it's fair. If that should happen, then they get it. I'm not going to pay it up front and then all of a sudden, we lost the contract or something happened. Nah.
And then after 3 million, you said 3 years?
2 years.
And then after 3 years.
And then that's it. And after that, it's all the companies. Yeah. Because after 2 years, then any contracts that we get from now until that's all the work that we did, so I figured 2 years is a good washout period. Okay. And after that, it's all on the strength of our sales reps, our director of strategy, all that stuff.
And then you're counting on the money you're raising to be able to finance all that work.
Yes.
Okay. Got it. Interesting. Okay. So have you closed on that one, the California one?
Not yet. No, that's going to require like actual money coming in because they don't want to do anything deferred or whatever. But right before the holidays, mid-December, we did get a commitment for 17.5 million. They're seeding our because I'm part of Family Office Club, Richard C. Wilson. So for the last year, I've been networking with them. He's actually taken a particular interest to us, and they put us in the right spot. So we've met some really good people where we finally got to the point, 17.5 million committed. We're just doing the paperwork to get it transferred. They already signed our subscription, just needs to transfer funds. And then we have another group that's committing 110 million. And so that's going to be about a month and a half. And then it's all just off to now it's just, so in the interim, I have hired a COO. I have my CFO. I have a compliance officer. I have my director of strategy. I went and got an EA, and we're building out the team.
Man,
yeah. My crazy here. It came out of nowhere. All I wanted to buy was a freaking frozen yogurt spot. And the thing is, the reason I'm even going this hard is because I see it now. I see it, and I can't unsee it. And it's like, why not go for it? If I see the path, if I put the right work and do all the right things, it could happen. So I'm going to keep going until, So something happens.
So why not use, like, for the two that you're putting a pretty high down, why not use financing, like bank financing? You would get a higher return. Okay.
These are all lessons learned also. It's because of um the time constraints and where we are. We want to get the deals done. So this is how we're gonna just wrap this up. But like my next, like for Q1, I'm working on a $22 million business in Florida between Miami and Fort Lauderdale. It's like 6.5 million EBITDA, and they want to sell for 22, which is fantastic. Um, that I'm definitely going to go to an investment bank, put down maybe 30% and leverage the rest, because that's the model that I particularly like, 70-30. Um, that's where we're good. Yeah. So I agree with that. I think 50%, but I modeled it out, and based on the strength of where we're going to be, we're going to do a couple of soft exits, like initial exits. And that's how we're going to then get it out of that structure and put it in a more traditional 70-30 LBO type structure. And then that'll satisfy that. But this gets us in the game. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. So you're trying to get into to again get in the game, try to get something in the fund and
And
raise
to
a
be
fund.
perfectly honest, because two of the assets are 50-50, but then Restore Pro is 100% debt. If you kind of do the aggregate, it kind of gets to like 30-40% in private equity, and the rest being some kind of debt service, whether seller financing or whatever.
Yeah.
So the margins work. I've done put it all on the spreadsheet and make sure that everything works.
Yeah. Okay. The first one makes sense, and I mean, yeah, who wouldn't not do
No, you know what?
it? Second,
The first one being that it's so debt heavy, it kind of slows us down when we want to do to put more capital in, because we're so heavy on our debt service. We have to be very careful on our cash cycles if we want to move, if we want to get more equipment, because we have to worry about that nut that we have to pay. Whereas private equity, with a lower payment from debt, you could do more.
yeah, it makes sense. No, it makes sense. And I'm talking like in general in terms of the risk
Yeah.
profile, but yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So, are you still doing acquisitions? Are you still looking at deals now?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And what's the, you know, uh, like, what did you learn from the last three that you're gonna take into the next three?
Oh man, just about the integration process. That was my biggest thing. So we've already learned and we've implemented with the one in Pennsylvania. So that was good. And then also,
Do differently there.
oh, like we right from the beginning. Hey, you guys are getting purchased. You're getting acquired. This is the new, putting in the general manager, making sure everybody knows the rules, the hierarchy, the chain of command. Letting them understand they're going to be part of a bigger umbrella and how that's going to work, because now they have sister companies. So everybody's actually excited, because we're also implementing something called a path to 100 for our techs, meaning they could come in right out of high school or whatever. Let's say college is not their jam, get paid $18 an hour. And over 5 or 6 years, we have a path where they could be making six figures or more. So that's the philanthropy part of what I'm doing. That's why I'm doing this whole thing in the beginning. I'm building an academy on the back end where I'm going to teach people how to, have financial literacy, how to value a business, how to acquire a business, give post-acquisition mentorship. And it's not going to be limited by capital, because it's just the story of how I grew up in Queens and all that. I did not have access to any of that, but I'm doing big things. I'm trying to set an incubator for the next Renan coming up, things like that. So that's what, and also within the portfolio companies I have, it's going to be where, I'm taking, separating veterans coming out of the military that need something to do. Here you go. We're going to plug you in, give you some mentorship, and kind of have you grow up in our portfolio. Yeah, that's
Awesome.
what it is. Yeah.
So how does the tech go from $18 to 100K?
So, we have a path where you have to get certain certifications within restoration, WRT, FSRT, mold, all that stuff. Then you have to have time and grade. And then you get, whatever certification you have, and you become a project manager. Now you're doing everything from soup to nuts, selling the job, working the estimate, doing the receivables, collecting. And then once you have that, now we give you a percentage of sales. At that point, sky's the limit. It's uncapped commissions. And, they can make 100,000 easily. I just did this for somebody. We're hiring a sales rep, and I showed him a path to 240,000, So, and that's based off of, I believe it was a $60,000 base salary, everything else commission based. And sky's the limit. Yeah.
Performance based. Darren was asking, are you still working with the same acquisition guys?
Same acquisition guys as far as what?
The guy that's making calls for you, the BA.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I just had a call with him. That's how I know that you and Andrew are working, because he told me about Andrew, and I thought, oh yeah, okay, cool. And then I saw Andrew at the Go Abundance holiday party we just did, and no, so the reason I'm still working with him is because he was there from the beginning, right? And we have a really good trust with each other and relationship. And so yeah, he's looking around the country for construction type companies for me. And then on the flip side, when I do build the academy and we have people that will then need to find businesses, I'm going to use his services and I'm going to pay for it. I'm not going to have the people in the academy pay. I'll pay for the service. I'll pay for all the overhead and everything. And then we'll figure out his success fee. So he's gonna do well with this whole thing. But he is still looking. And like I said, I've been fortunate to meet a lot of people out in the country now. So it's a lot of word of mouth. It's a lot of, hey, look, I found this company. Are you interested? Um, so that's how that's happening. I'm doing a lot of joint ventures also. The one in Florida is going to be a JV. And I'm actually doing two JVs down in Florida.
So what kind of JV are you doing in Florida?
So like, for example, the $22 million business, what I'm doing is I'm taking the out of my fund, I'm going to put the equity piece down and they're going to leverage the rest through conventional live oak or whatever kind of bank financing they could get. So they're going to be majority owners, but I have the equity piece. I'm going to make sure that they pay enough so I could do preferred distributions to my investors. So that, I want to take care of the investors. And then they're also going to pay a portfolio management fee to me because we're the overarching, and what they get for that is they get to be on our ADP. They get to be on the same benefit pool as we have because, the more people you have, the better benefit package you can get. 401k, all the back office accounting services. We're doing centralized accounting. So all of that is going to be centralized. After 3 years or so, we're going to have a discussion. Do you want to exit into the portfolio completely and then I'll just buy you out? Or do you just want to exit and we split the profits and have a good day? So that's how we're going to joint venture. And that way I don't have the headache of truly running that. They're going to run their business. And I think after debt service and the portfolio management and the preferred distribution to investors, they're still clearing 2.9 million on that deal. So it's changing their life forever,
So you say, who is it?
What's that?
Like are they?
Oh, so it's a fiance group. It's their name is Jacob and Gabby.
Just like a searcher, someone who's looking for a business, and then you come in and essentially a search fund.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. And then you bring in, and how much equity are you taking? Are you doing 50-50 or what's the equity split?
I'm doing about 30% equity into it, and they're going to have 70%. Yeah.
Got it. And you're putting down how much?
30%. That's 30%. We're going line for line. Yeah.
Got it. And how do you get away with not signing a personal guarantee because you're above 20%?
Well, it's because it's LP type stuff is being run through the fund. So that alleviates, because like if you take money from a private equity fund, I don't need all my LPs to do personal guarantees. It's being run through the fund. So whatever that is, I don't need personal guarantee for that, especially since we're not using SBA. More than likely what we're going to do is going to be private debt. Because that's something that I found to be vastly faster and cheaper than going through a bank. You get these high net worth individuals that are like, yeah, I'll put 10 million, just 8% over however many years. Done. That's the kind of.
Is it like the family office, Pat?
Yes. Yeah. Family offices, big institutions that they love doing debt. And they make their 8 to 10% returns. Yeah.
Interesting. Guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to jump in. I know, Glennon, you're in that space. You're in that world.
You keep inspiring me to go for it, man. We had Ben Surdy. He's in Washington. I have to confirm what his top line was. I think it was about 7 or 8 million, but he was telling us he exited out at like 49 million or something in road.
One L of an exit. I saw him down in Lake Oconee because he had a restoration. That's exactly it. That restoration business. And he said that he got, I think, an 8X exit or something like that. And that's exactly it. That's the power of what I'm doing. I'm buying these at 3 to 6x multiples. I'm going to put it together. We're going to get up to 100 million in EBITDA and exit for 15 to 20. I have it modeled 1.5 to $2 billion exit in 5 to 7 years. I vetted that out at Columbia with all my professors, other fund managers, and every single person that's in the space is like, yeah, those are the numbers. You're building a baby Berkshire Hathaway. I'm like, oh shit. So my exit is not going to be a true blue exit. I'm just going to go IPO because I like the strength of what we're doing. I have big vision for it, but 5 to 7 years, go IPO. I get a CEO to deal with all the shareholders, and I'm just going to, maybe then do real estate. I don't know. I don't know anything about real estate. So that's, along the way.
But this business is not going to be a restoration business. It's going to be a pretty much a CapEx improvement business.
Exactly. I mean, I'm calling it restoration, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It's
So are the multiples the same within a restoration as they are within that space?
Yes, because the multiples are predicated on what kind of management team you have, what kind of technology and processes that you have in place. We're putting EOS in across the board. So I'm going to have all the things that private equity is going to find to be top notch. And that's what's going to warrant a 15 to 20x exit.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, it's how do you get to 1.5 billion?
100 million EBITDA times a 15.
Okay. Got it. That's awesome. Who else? Who's got any questions?
Hey, Renan, so I'm a general contractor. We have this inspection business and we do a little bit of mold inspections and stuff like that. I had a lengthy conversation with Ben. We're really thinking about actually launching a remediation company, possibly starting with mold and then expand into all the water and fire and asbestos and all that stuff. Would you recommend me possibly acquiring a smaller company and taking that route? Or
Always, all day, every day. I landed on this because before this, I was trying to start a cannabis operation in Puerto Rico. And it was going to be a straight startup. I had the business plan and everything. That's how I met Cody Sanchez, because she had a cannabis fund. And you guys are actually going to really like this story. I went to her mastermind, and there was a guy on stage, and he was talking about how it's better to buy a business and, all this stuff and different ways to do it. I didn't care about that at the time. I went and I pitched him. I said, hey, look, you seem like you have money. You want to invest in this thing? And so he's like, hey, do you even care about cannabis? I said, no. He goes, buy a cash flowing business, get a head start, and just go with it. I was like, thank you, Mr. Osborne. That was David Osborne. I had no idea who the hell he was. He was just a guy that Cody knew. A year later, all of a sudden, I'm in GoBundance. I saw him in Tahoe. I'm like, hey, man, you remember this? He goes, aren't you glad you didn't do cannabis? But long story short, the thing from that is, if you could buy something that's already in place, structured, cash flowing already, and then you could just add your idea to it, do that all day, every day. That's where my mindset shifted. I want to buy an RV. Now I have to figure out where am I going to park it, right? So I'm looking at storage places. They're like going to charge $300 a month. I'm just going to buy a storage facility, make the cash flows, and park my RV there. That's how I see it going down from now on until I die. Anything that I spend more than 20% of my money doing, I'm just going to buy that kind of asset and make money off of doing it.
Love it.
So how did you make that transition from buying to raising a fund? How did they quickly?
Well, that was the thing. I really realized once I could buy an $8 million business with no money. If I had the capital, I could increase the success of doing that. And so I started looking into that. That's how I ended up Columbia Business School. And then I just put this whole thesis together, and then it just took off. Embarrassingly, the first amount of money I was going to raise was like $5 million just to buy some more frozen yogurt spots or whatever. But then as I was speaking to people within the field, they were like, 100 million makes you respectable, right? And then I got to meet Richard Wilson, and then I meet these other, and that's when I really realized there's some people in this world that have some extreme FU money, and they could just put, and so I'm actually talking to JP Morgan, having them, it's going to be a 1.5 year long diligence, but having them on the cap table would be fantastic. Now I have a vision of running $1 billion fund 4 or 5 years from now. I think that's where we're going to graduate to. But it was actually another GoBundance member, Phil Caprone. He's the one that put me in touch with my first SEC lawyer. He's like, hey, if you want to do a fund, I did one. It was $10 million. Talk to these people. So I did. I consulted with them, and then I just have the strategy and vision, and it just blew up. And to the point now where, we are committed over 100. So it feels, I mean, I haven't, talk to me in a month when I actually have the money in my account. Let me put it that way, right?
We're going to have you back in a month. Yeah, or 2. How about, what was your question, Dave?
Oh, hey, Renan. The question for you is, I wanted to understand your thought process of going from being a owner, like a true 100% owner, into being basically a fund manager or, some sort of a equity piece within this fund and growing it. Like, what did you have to do to change that thought process? And then what does your ownership structure look like in the fund, separately? Yeah.
Yeah, I immediately gravitated towards that because by giving up some ownership, I could grow exponentially faster. If I could give investors a good return on their money and grow this portfolio, everybody wins. So that it just made sense to me. And like, I don't know, the way I'm wired, I don't know if I'll ever be a billionaire. I don't even know if I want to be a billionaire because I plan to use that money for so many other things. I just want to generate the revenue so that I could do the things, the philanthropic stuff that I want to do. That's all I want to do. I know, Dave Osborne had his like $100 million number. Then he's since then quadrupled it or whatever. I don't have a set number. I just want to have enough money to do the things that I want to do for the community and the world. So it's okay for me to give up ownership because of that. It doesn't bother me. Now, your second question was structure. In what way? What are you referring to?
Yeah, like within the fund, like what's your percent ownership within the fund? Like you've got a huge vision. How are you making sure that you're getting compensated for it?
So I have 100% ownership of the fund, but then what I do is I have operating agreements with my COO, CFO, chief, all the people, all the C-suite. There's 3 people that I'm sharing the GP split. So when we exit, there's going to be a percentage given to each person on that. But as far as equity of the actual company, I'm the sole proprietor of the LLC, of the S Corp, of everything. And one of the reasons for that is because, I was a military veteran. So we have veteran status on it. Part of the stipulations on that is I have, 100% voting rights, 100% everything. So we just keep it easy that way. And I have 100% of the company. However, on the operating agreement, I have specific GP splits when we exit, who's going to get what, percentages and everything else.
How about your investors? Where are their returns?
Oh, the very first tranche, the first 10 million is 75% is the LP split. So they get 75%. I mean, the IRRs, the true IRR that I modeled out is like 35 to 40%. A couple of family offices said, put that down to 20. I was like, but it's really high. They're like, Renan, they're like, you put 45% on that, right? If you come in at 43%, is that good? I'm like, hell yeah, 43%. And like, you failed because you said 45 and you came in at 43. You need to come in, promote 20. And when you come in at 43, you're a rock star. So, we have strong returns. The LP split is 75%. Plus I give a preferred return to them based on invested capital.
How much preferred?
10%.
And then you have to pay it now? Or?
Paid it right out of the cash flows. Okay. So I model it. That's one of the things that I have on my model. If the cash flows of a company could support debt service, you would like a DSCR of like 1.5 to 2, and the preferred distribution to investors, then I could execute on that deal. If it's too light, then I can't. So new construction, for example, those margins are like 10 to 15%, right? And the way it distills, it's very tough to be able to give those kind of returns. That's why I don't like new construction, but restoration and capital improvements, tons of meat on that bone. I have plenty of room to give back to investors, to support debt service, and to reinvest to grow the companies.
So it's 10% preferred, 75, 25. Is it the whole time, or there's a threshold or IRR?
For the first 10 million, and I designed it like that to incentivize first money in. And then for the rest, it's 60-40. So the investor, the LP pool is 60%, and then it drops to an 8% preferred return. and there's 2% management fees. And the only other fees I have are acquisition and disposition fees, 3% and 3%, because I'm doing this all without brokers. So a broker will charge you like 10%, right?
Yeah.
So if I could negotiate the deal at for a 3%, I'm saving the whole deal 7%. So it's more efficient that way.
Got it. So essentially you're taking out 8% off the top, and then the rest is split, okay.
Correct.
Got it. And then they have their press. Okay. And then how many investors? Just 2?
So I have a couple of smaller checks, like 150, 250, and then all of a sudden I was blessed with this one big group that wants to put 17.5 in to anchor us. And then now I have, like I said, the other group that's talking 100, 110. So now we're pretty much done, once we get that. And then we're done for now until we start really scaling up. And then I go ahead, I put either a $500 million or $1 billion fund together, but that's not for like 2 or 3 years. Once I get settled and get some breathing room.
Yeah. So what are you anticipating to create in terms of EBITDA or in terms of revenue numbers with that, 120 million?
Yeah. I'm trying to get to, so the way it works out, it works out to about 600 million assets under management, which is around 400 million top line revenue, which, 25% of that is 100 million in EBITDA. So that's, very generic round numbers, 600 million total assets under management, 400 million top line revenues, 100 million in EBITDA.
Got it.
That's our goal.
And then, but that requires you to do the more financing now, more bank financing.
Yes. Yeah. We're going to, yeah. So, it's going to be a lot, but like I said, the people that I'm dealing with now, they do a lot of private debt. So, I made my connections with Live Oak. I think a lot of these businesses are going to be too big for SBA. Yeah. So I'm looking more at either commercial or private debt. And I think private debt is where we're going to land for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot easier. Makes sense. A little bit more expensive, but a lot easier.
Yes.
Any final questions, guys? Thoughts? I think we could probably talk for hours.
Yeah.
One other question, one last one. Do you see the EBITDAs kind of stay in the same ballpark range versus a 10 million EBITDA or a 50 million revenue versus a 600 million revenue?
What's that? What do you mean?
Do you think the EBITDA is going to stick about 25%?
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, theoretically, the EBITDA is supposed to grow because of economies of scale, because I have a lot of shared costs. So I would like to see a 30 to 35% EBITDA margin, but I don't want to model everything on that. I want to keep it as is, multiplied. I try to be as conservative as possible. That way I don't get disappointed. So if everything is the way it is, and then we just kind of multiply. Once we get to economies of scale, yes, if we're not 30% EBITDA margin, then we haven't done something right. However, if we stay at 20, that's the mindset that I'm going with. I want to be pleasantly surprised other than disappointed.
So one of the things that I've seen in terms of roll-ups like this is that, I don't know if you're familiar with Constellation software. There are a lot of big, large roll-ups that went public, where they do these shared services where your HR and your accounting and your everything at the top, and then you're trying to save, but eventually what they do, they end up bringing it back.
Really?
They always go up that way, and then they eventually bringing it back. And then they find that it's a lot better, easier, cheaper to have it at the unit level as opposed to have it at the top, at the headquarter level.
Well, what we're doing, like we're going to place like an HR representative at each one, but then they're going to report up to a centralized HR.
Yeah. So that's easy. Yeah. So that's
with accounting, same thing with a lot of, and like with our like our insurance plans, we're definitely going to have cost savings there. And matter of fact, eventually, my CFO, he was a controller for $1 billion construction company in Delaware. He saw a process where they used to self-insure themselves. So we won't even use third party like, Blue Cross Blue Shield. We would just do our own and it's limitless at that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to evolve as we get bigger for sure.
Cool. Well, thank you, Renan. I appreciate you taking the time and sharing the story with us. We'd love to have you back in a couple months, 2 to 3 months, once you raise the fund. And I want to hear more. And I also want to hear more about the joint ventures, because I bet you we're gonna have some guys here that would love to do a joint venture with you.
Yeah, no, that it's become very exciting, this path. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome, man. Have a good one. Thank you.
Thanks, Brennan.